U.S. officials have confirmed that a powerful Al-Qaida operative has been killed by a U.S. drone attack this week. It was a man named Maulvi Nazir, a militant commander who had been sending fighters to attack our troops in Afghanistan. This was the first drone strike of 2013 from the United States, but more than 350 have been launched since 2004, the majority since President Obama has taken office. And after we draw down our troop presence in Afghanistan, it's likely that we'll be even more dependent on drone strikes. And I mentioned that President Obama has authorized more drone strikes than President Bush did. Are we all comfortable with the idea of sending drones in instead of sending in our military and attacking from the skies?
I don't think you can completely replace human intelligence and human troops, but it's certainly been used as an effective tool and, certainly reduced potential deaths of our troops. So,
anybody to my left have any problems?
I have said on this show before that this president has not met a problem he hasn't been able to bomb. The law and the rules around war going back hundreds of years don't apply when the war is not with other nations but with terrorist organizations around the world. I'm deeply uncomfortable with the use of this technology. Especially when the president, and I think so much of it has to do with tone, when he made a crack about his daughter starting to date, and he said my response to that and anybody coming to court them is, I have these drones. It's not something to make light of. It's not a pop culture reference. These are weapons of war. Should we be using them? Probably. Should we be making light of them the way we have been? Probably not.
What if the target is an American? Does that throw a wrinkle into it?
It does, but these are the times that we live in. And a president, any president, has to make tough decisions. And I think most reasonable people wouldn't have a problem with this. The question is, let's take the American aside for a second. What happens when they miss and an innocent bystander is killed? That's a major issue.
And it's been conflated. I've been using that word a lot tonight. It's been conflated. Drone attacks and this technology have gotten conflated with due process for detainees and what's happening at Guantanamo. These are all separate issues and should be considered separately. And instead, the rhetoric has been, you can't be against drone attacks.
Speaking of which, things that are happening at Gitmo, on Wednesday, President Obama signed the National Defense Authorization Act. Included in there was a provision that allows for the continued indefinite detention of American citizens as well as terror suspects. Earlier, the president had threatened to veto the NDAA because it included provisions that restrict the administration's ability to close Guantanamo Bay. When he signed the same bill last year, he signed a statement saying that his administration would not engage in the indefinite detention of suspected terrorists. His signing statement this year included no such language. Is this just now the way we operate? Indefinite detention is now just a fact of life? I mean, don't we have due process still in this country?
Absolutely, but we also have to deal in reality, and the reality is there are many people that are looking to kill Americans and our way of life. So you can't be naive to that fact, and sometimes in certain circumstances, I think it's appropriate to push the envelope in a little bit in the interest of American safety.
See, on this one, I believe there really is a clear, bright line test. As an attorney and as someone who considers himself a progressive, I think that the indefinite detention and without due process and without seeing a judge and the conditions in Guantanamo are absolutely reprehensible, and we should not be doing them. The test of a country and of a people are how they treat their most vulnerable, victims, and criminals. And we are absolutely failing that test.
We've got people at Guantanamo Bay that are considered so dangerous or potentially dangerous that they can't be let go, but they have so little evidence on them, or perhaps they were tortured or waterboarded, that they can't go through a trial. Isn't the White House, isn't the administration really kind of stuck? What do you do with these people?
Well, look at the Benghazi attack. He was the one that ordered that was a Gitmo detainee. So, like I said, there's a certain situation of reality and American safety, and to deny that fact, I think, is just setting us up to be more vulnerable.
We're not talking about treating these people a certain way. We're talking about treating their rights a certain way. When you work in the criminal justice system or you work in the courts, you see that defendants are treated not terribly well, but their rights in the process are treated very well. And it's their rights and the process that should be respected, because you never know what's going to happen next year. You start eroding these protections, and the next thing you know, they're coming for you.
I can understand both arguments, but it's so scary. We say so dangerous, so says who? I mean, the American government, but what evidence do we have of that? I mean, because you say I'm a bad guy, that doesn't mean I'm a bad guy.
Well, but then again, if one of these guys is released because we don't want to hold them indefinitely and we can't draw them, if one of them is released and does something horrible, what the blowback's going to be after that.
We're not talking about releasing them. We're talking about presenting some of the evidence, even in a closed courtroom, so that you could have a process. And then if they need to be sentenced to a supermax prison where they're inside 23 hours a day, so be it. But their rights have to be respected.
All right, we're going to move on to the movie Zero Dark 30. It's been controversial from the moment the project was announced, but now the film is getting some additional unwanted attention from lawmakers. For weeks, some lawmakers have complained that the film leads viewers to the questionable conclusion that torture was instrumental in the capture of Osama bin Laden.
You believe when watching this movie that waterboarding and torture leads to information that leads then to the elimination of Osama bin Laden. That's not the case.
Now, as he has been wont to do, McCain has gone completely overboard with this. He's thinking that the CIA might have misled or perhaps leaked information to the filmmakers on this. He wants an investigation. It's just a movie. But my question is, Zero Dark 30 certainly puts torture in a favorable light, and it seems to indicate from what I've heard, that helped us get Osama bin Laden. And I was thinking back through my movie history, torture always works in the movies, doesn't it?
It does, and it's honestly, as sick as it is, this whole fascination with terrorism has become part of our culture now. Look at Homeland, which I love, but that's, they torture terrorists in that show as well, and it's one of the biggest shows on television right now. But
do we think that's one of the reasons why so many people think torture is so much more effective than a lot of experts say it actually is?
I don't know that this is so novel or so new. This has been a part of war movies, and that's what this is. It's a war movie. We had a fairly gruesome torture scene in The English Patient, and you look back at some of the World War II movies. It's what happens. I don't see this as being new. If Senator McCain thinks there needs to be an investigation, his opinion's to be respected given his personal history, but I just don't think it makes terribly much sense.
It's a movie.
Yeah.
I agree.
All right. We're going to take a quick break here. We're going to wrap things up on RFL when we return. Stay with us.